Hey everyone, I'm Lumberjack Nick, and today we're going to talk about movies that use practical effects as opposed to special effects. And a lot of times there's some controversy about this, and some people say, like, oh, CGI is better, no, practical effects are better. So um, today we're going to talk about practical effects, and there are even some modern movies, and there's one that I think did it really well that still used practical effects. So we'll go through my 5 scenes from movies with practical effects and take a look at each one. So, number 5 is Apollo 13. So, Apollo 13, instead of using CGI for a lot of the low gravity scenes, they actually used the NASA quote quote vomit comet, which is basically just a jet that'll dive bomb and give you about 25 seconds of weightlessness. So they took the whole production crew up there, they took the movie crew up there, and they put them in the jet and they filmed them in actual zero gravity using this NASA jet. So in some of the scenes you're seeing here, it's just a little bit of behind the scenes of them filming and just how they did it. But I thought that this was really interesting because they easily could have done this by CGI, but the directors took the chance of commissioning this NASA plane, knowing that it would just end up with a better and more authentic result. So I think that that was really cool that they chose to do that, and instead of, I guess, like the cop out of CGI for this movie. So I think that that was a really well done example of a practical effect in a movie. All right. And number 4 is Inception. I wasn't a huge fan of Inception. I saw it in theaters. I thought that the plot was just overly complicated to be overly complicated. But one thing that I really respect about Inception is that they chose to use practical effects in the movie when possible. So, this scene that I'm going to show you is a really interesting scene because it looks like it's CGI, but it's actually not. So that the way that this scene was done is there was a effects director, Chris Corbould, who is from London, and he basically pulled off this scene by strategically placing air cannons all over the set, and they would have them go off, and it would throw all of this stuff out. And it probably wasn't, actually what it looks like. It was probably foam and just some well painted, just pieces and different things so that the air cannon could actually push it out. But that's how this was done. So this whole entire scene was entirely practical effects, not CGI. And they even had the car and the bike flipping. So this is something that like you can say like, oh, that easily could have been done by CGI, but it was done with a practical effect just for the authenticity. Because I think a lot of people would agree that like if something's completely done in CGI, you can kind of tell like. Until I don't think we're quite to the point yet where you can't tell the difference between a CGI and practical effect. Like maybe even if it's not something that you consciously think about, you still kind of know and don't take away quite as much from the scene when it's done with CGI. So my number 3 is Mad Max Fury Road, the newer one. And if you actually get the DVD or the Blu-ray with the bonus material, you get a really, really nice video that goes into like the making of the movie, and I'm showing some scenes of that here. But this entire movie was done with in a desert with a lot of stunt actors, and the thing that I really respect about this movie is they did use CGI to kind of fill in the background, but all of the stunts and everything that was done was actually real people doing it. So all the cars were real. You see here that they had some people that just basically did the art of the cars, creating each individual unique car, painting them, making them look rusted, making everything look right, making them look authentic for the movie. And then some of the scenes, like when you have the guys that climb up on the long poles to board the other vehicles, they were stunt actors that figured out how to do that, practice that. Um, and even at the end, where you see the crash, which I'll show on the screen here, with the war rig when it crashes in, that was all something that they actually did, actually filmed. And I just think that that was really cool that they actually went out and did all of this. And I think that that movie turned out so good. And I think a huge part of it was the attention to that detail. And like, think about all the time that people spent making the cars and getting all of this set up. And I feel like there was a lot put into this movie. And I guess it wouldn't have had to be because they probably could have CGI'd it, but it just wouldn't have been as good. So that's what they did. And I think that that was really cool. All right. So my number two is Jurassic Park, the original one. Um, the cool thing about Jurassic Park was they did use some CGI, but they mixed practical effects with CGI. And in doing that, they kind of didn't stick on the CGI for long enough for the viewer to catch on that it was CGI. So they used animatronics and practical effects and all kinds of things to make it work. One of the coolest examples that I think is the scene with the water where you see it like bouncing. It took them a long time to figure out how to actually do that. And what they eventually ended up doing is they found that if they put a bass guitar string strung along the bottom of the car, and they actually had somebody under the car plucking the bass guitar string to get that effect of the water shaking when the T-Rex was coming. So I thought that that was really cool. And they used some of the scenes, if you look, are CGI, some of them animatronics, but they don't stick on one thing for long enough for you to know. So Jurassic Park's my number two, and I think they did a really good job kind of blending everything and using practical effects when they could. All right, and my number one is Star Wars Return of the Jedi. And now, if you think about when these movies came out, this was before there was a ton of special effects available. They still did to a point, but most of it was done with like models and like different types of things. So it kind of was practical effects. But uh, the thing that I thought that was really interesting is a lot of the characters and different things in the movies were like people in suits or like basically animatronic puppets. So if you look at some of the images here, you can see that R2D2 was actually just a guy in a suit. And like you can see some of the shots from behind the scenes of him without the top on, just in the R2D2 animatronic. And I think that that's really cool. But the most interesting thing about Star Wars is the way that Jabba the Hutt was done. So Jabba the Hutt was basically just a huge animatronic puppet that was controlled by multiple people that were inside of it. So I think one would control one arm, one would control the other, somebody would control the tail, and then somebody on the bottom would make the face move around. So I've got some pictures of those guys here, and you can actually see like it's a full-size scale animatronic puppet. And it was really interesting because they even had like their own makeup artists for each puppet. So like Jabba the Hutt had his own makeup artist. So like a special effects makeup artist to make sure everything looked right. And that's how they created the lifelike faces, is they utilized somebody who did special effects makeup so they'd make this animatronic and then they would have somebody basically paint or like design the makeup on it to make it look the best for screen. All right, guys, so I hope you enjoyed that. If you liked the video, please leave it a like. If you have any questions, comments, leave them in the description and tell me what your favorite movie with practical effects was. Please subscribe to our channel and I will catch you guys on the next video. Bye.